Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the origin story and the absolute core philosophy of one of the most foundational financial books ever written, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're going to unpack the fascinating real-life narrative that shaped these legendary financial lessons. Let's get right into it.
So to really understand where this entire philosophy comes from, we actually have to start with a deeply frustrated kid. Picture this. It's 1996, and the book's co-author, Sharon Lechter, has her son come home from school just absolutely disillusioned. He looks at her and asks, "Why should I put time into studying subjects I am literally never going to use in real life?" Naturally, her immediate motherly response was the traditional one, right? She told him, if you don't get good grades, you won't get into college, and you definitely won't get a good job. But for a kid growing up in the modern era, that traditional path was exactly the thing he was questioning.
He pushed back hard with a really powerful observation. He said, "Look around. The richest people didn't get rich because of their educations." He pointed out that people like Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard and still went on to found Microsoft. He realized, he knew for a fact that the traditional advice of getting good grades to secure a safe job was just completely failing in our rapidly changing world. A good education simply didn't guarantee success anymore. And honestly, this realization forced his mother to rethink literally everything she thought she knew about financial education.
Okay, let's dive into this. The source material outlines this inescapable cycle that traditional education sets us all up for. You've probably heard of it. It's famously known as the rat race. And the path is entirely predictable. First, you get good grades. Then, you find a secure job and start making some money. But then, right on cue, the credit cards arrive, you buy a house, and suddenly you take on massive debt. To pay for all this, you work harder to get promotions, but that just means your taxes go up. You end up totally trapped, working endlessly for the owners of your company, for the government paying taxes, and for the bank paying off your mortgage. It is an endless cycle of working for others.
This brings us to the real meat of our explainer, the amazing story of Robert Kiyosaki himself. See, Robert grew up with two very different father figures who took two completely different paths in life. On one side, we have his biological father, his poor dad. Now, this man was highly educated. We're talking multiple advanced degrees from Stanford, Chicago, and Northwestern. Yet he struggled financially his entire life. On the other side, we have his best friend's father, his rich dad. This man never even finished the 8th grade, but he would go on to become one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. Both were strong, hardworking men for sure, but their financial outcomes were just worlds apart.
And this stark contrast brilliantly illustrates that their differing views on money were deeply philosophical. It wasn't just practical stuff. As a young boy, Robert watched how these two men thought. His highly educated dad truly believed that the love of money was the root of all evil. But his rich dad, he believed that the lack of money was the root of all evil. Imagine having these two completely opposing viewpoints in your ear. It forced young Robert to think critically and actually choose which mindset he was going to adopt.
Perhaps the most powerful example of this contrast was exactly how they handled financial limitations. The poor dad had a habit of automatically saying, "I can't afford it." The rich dad, he absolutely forbade those words. Instead, he insisted on asking a question: how can I afford it? The rich dad believed that making a flat statement like "I can't afford it" simply puts the brain to sleep. It just lets you off the hook. But asking how forces the mind to exercise, grow stronger, and actually hunt for solutions. He viewed it as the difference between mental laziness and a mental workout.
So how do these big philosophies play out in real life? Let's travel all the way back to Hawaii in 1956. 9-year-old Robert and his best friend Mike attended a public school right alongside the children of wealthy plantation managers. After not being invited to a rich kid's beach house simply because they were the poor kids, Robert and Mike made a pretty bold decision. They asked Robert's educated dad how to make money. And his advice? He just said, "Use your head." And so, fueled by that incredibly vague piece of wisdom, the two 9-year-old boys decided they were going to start a business.
Now, their business idea was, it was certainly creative. They scoured the neighborhood, collected a bunch of used lead toothpaste tubes, built a literal production line in the driveway, and melted the lead over a hot coal grill. Then they carefully poured the liquid metal into plaster of Paris molds. Their final product? Lead nickels. Yes, you heard that right. These two 9-year-olds had inadvertently started a completely illegal counterfeit coin business.
As you can guess, Robert's biological dad discovered this little operation and swiftly, though gently, shut the whole thing down. He had to explain to them what the word counterfeiting actually meant. But, he didn't crush their spirits. He actually praised their initiative. And when Robert asked him again how to get rich, his educated dad pointed them in a totally new direction. He said, "If you want to learn how to be rich, don't ask me. Talk to your dad, Mike."
He recognized that Mike's father, who was an entrepreneur, was brilliantly building an empire.
So Robert and Mike approached Mike's dad, the soon-to-be rich dad, to ask for his secrets. But he didn't hand them a textbook. No way. Instead, he gave them a super strict take-it-or-leave-it offer. He told them, "I'll teach you, but I won't do it classroom style. You work for me, I'll teach you." He strongly believed that a classroom setting is just a waste of time for this subject, and that working in the real world is the absolute only way to truly learn about money.
Robert accepts the offer, giving up his precious Saturday baseball games. And the compensation for this incredible, highly anticipated real-world education? A massive, frustrating 10 cents an hour. I mean, even back in 1956, that was ridiculously low pay. So every single Saturday, for 3 long hours, the boys worked in a hot, dusty souperette, literally just dusting off canned goods. Week 1, Robert earns a measly 30 cents. Week 2, he spends it all on comic books. By week 3, the extreme boredom really starts setting in. And by week 4, a 9-year-old Robert has reached his absolute breaking point. He's tired of being a slave for pennies. He decides he's going to demand a 25-cent raise, and if he doesn't get it, he is fully ready to quit.
Robert marches right into Rich Dad's office for an angry confrontation. You can just picture this tiny 9-year-old boy yelling at this imposing businessman. He accuses him of not keeping his word, screaming, "You haven't taught me anything." He literally calls him a greedy crook who exploits children and fiercely demands to be treated better.
Now, you might expect the boss to get angry, right? But Rich Dad's response is completely unexpected. He doesn't get mad at all. In fact, he calmly tells Robert that he sounds just like most of the employees he's had to fire over the years. He explains that he actually has been teaching him this whole time. He drops this incredibly profound quote, "Most of the time, life does not talk to you. It just sort of pushes you around. Each push is life saying, 'Wake up, there's something I want you to learn.'" Rich Dad then maps out the ways people typically react when life inevitably pushes them around. Some people just let life push them right into submission, playing it safe out of fear and eventually giving up. Others get angry, but they push back at the wrong things. They get mad at their boss, their job, or their spouse, always hoping a bigger paycheck will magically fix it all. But a rare few, they actually welcome the push. They learn the lesson and they move on.
Rich Dad makes Robert realize that paying him 10 cents an hour wasn't about exploitation at all. It was purposefully designed to give him a taste of real life. He tells Robert, "Stop blaming me thinking I'm the problem. If you realize that you're the problem, then you can change yourself." He desperately wanted Robert to look inward. Think about it. If you believe the boss is the problem, you'll spend your entire life waiting for the boss to change. But if you realize you are the problem, you can educate yourself and grow wiser.
So, the absolute crucial point here is this. Getting angry and demanding a 25-cent raise was never going to solve Robert's money problems. More money doesn't solve financial struggles. In fact, for most people, more money just leads to more debt. What actually solves money problems is financial intelligence. That is the mental process we use to solve our financial problems using the stuff right between our ears. Your mindset is, without a doubt, your greatest asset.
This entire 4-week ordeal, the endless boredom, the tiny paycheck, the anger, and that explosive confrontation, it was all a brilliant setup for the ultimate climax of the story. It built the foundation for the central philosophy that would shape the rest of Robert Kiyosaki's entire life. The whole shebang boils down to lesson number 1.
And here it is. This is the defining difference between the two fathers. The poor dad went to school to get a high-paying job, deeply believing in the security of a paycheck. But the rich dad taught that the poor and the middle class work for money. They let fear and desire keep them completely trapped in that rat race, endlessly chasing the next paycheck. On the flip side, the rich have money work for them. They refuse to spend their lives trading their precious time for a wage. Instead, they use their financial intelligence to build assets and literally make money their employee.
And that brings us to a close today, but I want to leave you with a really provocative question based on everything we've just uncovered. Take a hard look at your own life and your own paycheck. Are you letting fear and the traditional rat race force you to work for money? Or are you actively exercising your financial intelligence to ensure your money is out there working for you? It's a question that can completely change how you view the world. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exercising that financial genius.